Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's story. In this episode, we finally witnessed the moment we've all been waiting for. After many terrifying days of disappearance, Tien and her baby Anna return home. What should be a joyful reunion quickly becomes something deeper and more emotional as Jack comes face to face with the fear, guilt, and love he has been carrying all this time. This is not just a story about coming back, but about healing after trauma, learning how to feel safe again, and rebuilding a family that was pushed to the edge. Stay with us until the end to experience how love survives fear, how trust is slowly restored. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support truly means the world to us. After days of uncertainty, fear, and unanswered questions, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. It was late afternoon when Jack heard the sound of a car slowing down in front of the house. At first, he didn't react. For days now, every unfamiliar sound had raised his hopes, only to let them fall again. Cars passed. People came and went. None of them brought Tien or Anna back. But this time was different. There was something in the way the engine stopped. Something in the silence that followed. Jack stood up from the porch steps, his heart suddenly racing for reasons he couldn't explain. He had barely slept in days. His face looked thinner, his eyes sunken, his clothes hanging loosely on his body. Every single day without Tien and Anna had felt like an entire year. The car door opened. Jack took one step forward, then another, and then he froze. Tien stepped out first. For a split second, Jack couldn't breathe. He wasn't sure if what he was seeing was real or just another cruel trick of his exhausted mind. She looked thinner. Her face was pale, her hair messy, and there were faint bruises on her skin. She held Anna tightly against her chest, as if afraid that letting go for even a second would make her disappear again. Anna was asleep, wrapped in an oversized jacket, her tiny face pressed into Tien's shoulder. Jack's knees nearly gave out. Tien, he whispered, his voice breaking before it fully left his throat. Tien looked up. The moment their eyes met, everything collapsed. Jack didn't remember running toward her. He only knew that the distance between them vanished in an instant. He stopped just inches away, afraid, terrified that if he moved too fast, she would vanish like smoke. You're here, he said, his voice trembling. You're really here. Tien nodded, tears streaming down her face. Jack, that was all it took. Jack reached out, pulling both Tien and Anna into his arms. Holding them so tightly, his hands shook. His forehead pressed against Tien's hair as his shoulders began to shake uncontrollably. He didn't care who was watching. He didn't care how he looked. In that moment, the only thing that mattered was that they were alive. They were home. I thought I lost you, Jack choked. I thought I lost both of you. Tien clung to him, her fingers digging into his jacket. I tried to come back. Every day, I tried. I was so scared I wouldn't see you again. Jack pulled back slightly, just enough to look at her face, then at Anna. He brushed his finger gently across Anna's cheek, afraid even his touch might wake her. She's okay? He asked quietly, fear still gripping his heart. Tien nodded again. She's okay. She's tired. but she's okay. Jack let out a broken breath, closing his eyes, as relief flooded through him so strongly it almost hurt. He pressed a kiss to Anna's forehead, then another to Lytutien's hair, his lips trembling. Neighbors began to gather quietly, drawn by the unusual stillness and emotion. But no one interrupted. Everyone understood that this reunion was sacred. Jack helped Lytutien inside, his hand never leaving her arm, as if he needed physical proof that she was real. The familiar warmth of the house surrounded them, but for Lytutien, everything felt strange, like stepping into a life she wasn't sure still belonged to her. Jack gently guided her to the couch, carefully helping her sit down. He knelt in front of her, his eyes scanning her face, her hands, every visible mark on her skin. "You're hurt," he said, his voice tight. "It looks worse than it is," Lytutien replied softly. "I'll heal." Jack swallowed hard. "You shouldn't have had to heal from anything. I should have protected you." Lytutien shook her head immediately. "No, don't say that. None of this is your fault." But Jack couldn't stop the guilt from crashing over him. Every night, he had replayed the same thoughts over and over. What if he had noticed something earlier? What if he had insisted they leave sooner? What if Anna stirred in Lytutien's arms, letting out a soft whimper? Jack instantly stood up. "Let me take her." Lytutien hesitated for half a second, then carefully placed Anna into Jack's arms. The moment Jack held her, his chest tightened. She felt lighter than he remembered. Too light. "She's lost weight," he said quietly. Lytutien nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "We didn't always have enough food." Jack's jaw clenched. He gently rocked Anna, his thumb brushing across her tiny hand. "I'm so sorry, baby," he whispered. Anna slowly opened her eyes, blinking in confusion. When she saw Jack's face, she froze, then reached out clumsily, her small fingers grabbing onto his shirt. Jack broke. A sob tore out of him before he could stop it. He hugged her closer, his face pressed against her tiny shoulder. "Daddy's here," he whispered, again and again. "Daddy's here. I'm not going anywhere." Anna let out a soft sound, then relaxed against him, as if recognizing the safety she had been missing. Lytutien watched them, tears streaming silently down her face. Seeing Jack and Anna together again filled her with relief, but also a deep exhaustion that suddenly hit her all at once. Her body felt heavy, her head throbbed. Jack noticed immediately. "You need to rest," he said firmly. "You both do." He carried Anna to the bedroom, laying her gently on the bed, tucking a blanket around her. Lytutien stood in the doorway, swaying slightly. Jack turned back, just in time to catch her as her knees buckled. "Hey," he said softly, holding her upright. "I've got you." "I'm just tired," Lytutien whispered. "So tired." Jack helped her sit on the edge of the bed. "You don't need to be strong anymore. You're home." Those words finally broke whatever wall Lytutien had been holding up. She covered her face and cried, deep, shaking sobs that came from days of fear, hunger, and desperation she hadn't allowed herself to feel until now. Jack sat beside her, pulling her into his arms, letting her cry without saying a word. His hand rested on her back, steady and warm. When her breathing finally slowed, Jack spoke quietly. "Tell me everything, but only when you're ready." Lytutien nodded weakly. "Not today," she said. "Today, I just want to sleep." "That's okay," Jack replied immediately. "There's no rush." He helped her lie down beside Anna, adjusting the pillow under her head. For the first time in days, Lytutien felt safe enough to close her eyes. Jack stayed there, sitting on the floor beside the bed, watching them breathe. The house was silent again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was full of relief, full of gratitude, full of a fragile piece that had been missing for far too long. And as Jack watched Lytutien and Anna sleep, he made a silent promise to himself. Whatever had taken them away from him, he would never let it come close again. The house was quiet, but Jack still couldn't sleep. It wasn't the peaceful kind of silence he remembered from before. This quiet felt fragile, as if even the walls were afraid that one wrong sound might shatter everything. Jack sat on the couch in the living room, his elbows resting on his knees, staring down the dim hallway that led to the bedroom. Every few minutes, he stood up and walked toward the door. He never opened it all the way, just enough to see inside. Lytutien lay on the bed, her body curled slightly toward Anna, one arm protectively wrapped around her. Anna slept deeply, her tiny chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Each time Jack saw them, his heart tightened. They were here. They were real. And yet, fear still whispered in the back of his mind, telling him that if he let his guard down, if he closed his eyes for too long, everything could disappear again. Jack returned to the couch, rubbing his face with both hands. Exhaustion weighed on his body, but his thoughts refused to slow. The past days replayed relentlessly. Empty rooms, unanswered phone calls, endless searching, and the growing panic he had hidden behind determination. Now that Lytutien and Anna were home, all those buried emotions surfaced at once. Near midnight, a faint sound came from the bedroom. Jack was on his feet instantly. He walked in quietly and saw Lytutien awake, her eyes open and unfocused, staring at the ceiling. Her expression was distant, like part of her was still somewhere far away. Jack sat beside her and spoke softly. "It's okay. I'm here." Lytutien turned her head slowly. When she saw him, tension drained from her shoulders. "You didn't leave," she said quietly, almost as if she needed to confirm it. Jack shook his head. "I'm not going anywhere." She tried to sit up, but her body protested. She winced slightly, her hand moving to her side. "Easy," Jack said, gently placing his hand over hers. "You don't need to move." Lytutien let out a slow breath and lay back down. "My body feels strange," she murmured, "like it's not mine anymore." "You've been through a lot," Jack replied. "It's going to take time." Between them, Anna stirred. She made a soft sound in her sleep, her face scrunching slightly. Jack carefully lifted her and held her against his chest. Almost instantly, Anna relaxed, her tiny fingers gripping his shirt. Jack swallowed hard. "She still knows you," Lytutien said softly, watching them. "I was scared she wouldn't," Jack admitted. "I kept thinking, what if she forgets me?" Lytutien shook her head. "I talked about you every day. Even when I was terrified, I told her Daddy was looking for us, that Daddy would find us." Jack lowered his head, pressing a gentle kiss to Anna's hair. "I never stopped." Silence settled again, heavy but calm. After a while, Lytutien spoke, her voice trembling. "Jack, there were moments when I didn't think we'd make it back. Jack's chest tightened, but he stayed quiet, letting her continue. There were nights I was so exhausted I thought my body would give up, she whispered. I held Anna and wondered what would happen to her if I couldn't keep going. Tears slid down her temples. I hated those thoughts, she said, but they came anyway. Jack reached out, wiping her tears with careful fingers. You don't have to carry that alone anymore. I don't want secrets between us, Lytutien said. I don't want to pretend I was strong all the time. Jack nodded. You don't have to pretend. Not with me. Morning arrived slowly. Soft sunlight crept through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. Anna woke first, blinking curiously. When she saw Jack nearby, her lips curved into a small, sleepy smile. Jack laughed quietly, his chest aching. Good morning, baby. Lytutien watched from the bed, emotion tightening her throat. Seeing Anna smile again made everything feel real and overwhelming at the same time. Later that morning, Jack prepared breakfast. He moved carefully, keeping the house quiet. He didn't let Lytutien help, guiding her to the table and wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. You don't have to do everything, Lytutien said gently. I want to, Jack replied. Let me take care of you. When Lytutien took her first bites of warm food, her hands trembled slightly. Jack noticed immediately. Is it too much? He asked. She shook her head. No, it's just, I forgot what it feels like to eat without fear. Jack's jaw tightened. You're safe now. There's no rush. The day passed quietly. Lytutien rested on the couch while Jack took care of Anna. He changed her clothes, rocked her when she cried, carried her everywhere like he was afraid to put her down. Every small moment felt precious. In the afternoon, Lytutien finally felt strong enough to step outside. Jack held her hand as they walked onto the porch. The cool air touched her face, and she closed her eyes, breathing deeply. I thought I'd never come back here, she whispered. Jack squeezed her hand. You're home. They sat together, watching the trees sway gently. Anna slept peacefully in Jack's arms. After a long silence, Lytutien asked, what was it like while we were gone? Jack took a deep breath. Every day felt wrong, like the world kept moving but forgot us. I couldn't rest. I couldn't stop searching. I'm sorry, Lytutien said quietly. Don't apologize, Jack replied. I'd do it all again if it meant bringing you back. That night, Lytutien woke from a nightmare. She gasped for air, her body shaking. Jack was awake instantly, pulling her into his arms. You're safe, he whispered. You're here. Anna's here. She clung to him, her breathing uneven. I thought I lost her again. Jack held her tightly, rocking her slowly. She's right here. Nothing is taking her away. It took a long time for her to calm down. Jack didn't let go once. Over the following days, healing came in uneven steps. Some moments felt almost normal. Quiet laughter when Anna made a funny sound. Shared meals, sitting together in silence that didn't feel empty. Other moments were heavy. Lytutien startled at sudden noises. Jack found himself checking the doors repeatedly, even in the middle of the night. Fear had changed them. One night, as they lay beside each other, Lytutien spoke softly into the darkness. Do you think we'll ever feel the same again? Jack thought carefully. Maybe not the same, but maybe stronger. She turned to face him. I don't want to forget what happened." "I don't either," Jack said, "but I don't want it to control our future." Tien nodded slowly. "I want to live again, not just survive." Jack reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Then we'll learn how, together." Anna stirred softly between them, her small hand brushing against both of theirs. In that quiet moment, Jack understood something clearly. Their return wasn't a happy ending. It was a fragile beginning, built on fear, scars, gratitude, and a love that had been tested in the darkest way possible. And step by step, together, they were finally learning how to live again.